Breaking news, a federal judge just ruled the Trump administration must immediately reinstate thousands of probationary employees who were fired last month from a half dozen federal agencies. Senior reporter Catherine Faulders joins me now to tell us what we know. Catherine.
Yeah, Kira, this is a big deal from a federal judge out in California who essentially issued this scathing rebuke of the Trump administration as it has to do with those nearly 20,000 probationary workers who were fired. Probationary workers are workers who have worked in the government for a short period of time, 1 to 2 years, and following multiple agencies terminating them. The judge says that they didn't follow the proper process, that they've unlawfully terminated these workers because they've said that this was for performance reasons. He said follow the proper process, that they've unlawfully terminated these workers. Terminating them. The judge says that they didn't follow the proper process, that they've unlawfully terminated these workers because they've said that this was for performance reasons. He said that in a lot of cases, they were not terminated for performance reasons, that they didn't follow the process established in federal law. The judge said that the government used, quote, lies and gimmicks to unlawfully terminate these workers. He's ordered them immediately reinstated. It will be a bit of a process. How this happens, if they're walking into their buildings today, is a bit unclear. But the judge has ordered these government agencies to essentially produce a report in the coming days. Each individual agency needs to essentially say they need to notify all employees that they're reinstated. They have to identify everybody who was fired and who was a probationary worker. So it is a big ruling, and I'm sure a lot of these, obviously these outside groups who represent federal workers are applauding the judge's actions. Of course, this can still be appealed by the government, which we do expect.
All right, so we're talking about Veterans Affairs, Department of Agriculture, Department of Defense, Department of Energy, Department of Treasury. Trump and Musk probably are going to appeal, right? So what would that look like?
Yeah, exactly. They sure will. I don't believe the government has filed a notice of appeal yet, but I could expect the Department of Justice to do that, I'm sure, in the coming hours. So they will appeal. It's possible that an appeals court could issue a stay and that this could be paused. But again, this will be a process. It will play out. So they will likely do that. And then we will hear from the court, the higher court, on whether or not they put this pause into effect. But right now, this judge has ruled that all of these workers must be reinstated. There's about 20,000 of them. It's definitely a big win for the federal workforce.
Got it. All right. Yeah, they're going to love this. Catherine Faulders, thank you so much.
A California judge has ordered the Trump administration to reinstate thousands of recently hired. A California judge has ordered the Trump administration to reinstate thousands of recently hired employees who were fired. It's the most significant blow yet to the effort by President Donald Trump and his advisor Elon Musk to drastically shrink the federal bureaucracy. The ruling applies to probationary employees at 6 U.S. agencies: the Departments of Defense, Veterans Affairs, Agriculture, Energy, Interior, and the Treasury. The judge ruled that the Office of Personnel Management had improperly directed those agencies to fire workers without having the power to do so. He said, quote, "It is a sad day when our government would fire some good employee and say it was based on performance, when they know good and well that's a lie. Probationary employees in general can only be fired for performance issues." The White House and the other agencies did not immediately respond to requests for comment. The ruling came on a deadline day for government agencies to submit plans for a second wave of mass layoffs. About 25,000 workers across the U.S. government had been fired as
A federal judge has ordered the Trump administration to immediately rehire tens of thousands of employees at federal agencies. The probationary employees were fired last month as part of the administration's effort to shrink the federal workforce.
Joining us now is CBS News Justice correspondent Scott MacFarlane. Scott, thanks for being with us. I want to start by asking about these judges that are reversing these firings and executive orders, and yet we're still hearing about layoffs. So what are you hearing about any leveling off or what happens next?
Yeah, a lot happening at once. It's easy to get disoriented, but it was a big loss in court for the Trump administration as the afternoon began. A judge in California ruled all those probationary workers, the new workers who were fired, should be reinstated at 6 major agencies, including the big ones: the Defense Department, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, the U.S. Department of Energy. The judge ruled those firings were unlawful. But the firings and the demotions and the downsizing continues. We saw it earlier this week at the Department of Education. And I'll note this, as there's this push to get workers back on the job reinstated or to slow the layoffs at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, Senator Tammy Duckworth introducing a bill that would help force the issue there to get veterans either back on the job or to keep their jobs. There are some real concerns that these layoffs at the VA could impact not just the medical center in Chicago, but all the community-based clinics. There are many of them throughout the region.
Right, a lot of people here watching that. We'll stay on top of it. With all this playing out, at the same time, we're hearing the tick of the clock as we get closer to a government shutdown. Are we any closer to an agreement?
Oh, we're flirting with danger again, aren't we? This is like procrastinating possibility to join Republicans here. There are negotiations going on.
Well, the latest is that we're waiting to hear.
Former IRS IT specialist George Johnston describes his reaction to judges' decisions that he and thousands of other probationary federal employees, generally those with less than a year on the job, but in some cases 2 years, were illegally fired by Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency in February. The judges' rulings ordered the government to begin reinstatement. But how? Johnston and the others no longer have access to their government email.
Unfortunately, I don't know. Now, if they go and try to find my former supervisors, they could get in touch with me. But there's a big disconnect between the powers that be that are actually executing all HR actions and your frontline managers.
That type of process, as inefficient and time-consuming as it might be given how many people are involved, might be how the judge's orders are put into effect, says Michelle Bercovici, who is a partner with Alden Law Group and represents federal employees across the globe.
And what I would actually expect is that most people are going to be put on administrative leave. You will likely receive some sort of notice that you're being placed on administrative, which is paid and on-duty leave. Will agencies figure out how to onboard everyone back?
Johnston says he has many unanswered questions, including what it means for workers who were close to the conclusion of their probationary period when they were fired.
The timing is everything. There are a couple of situations where I could come back and I'm still a probationary employee, meaning my year hasn't passed. And then there's situations where this gets processed and I come after my anniversary date. It's unclear if the clock continued to tick.
The Maryland judge's order covers probationary employees nationwide, not just those in states named in the lawsuit. Jackie Benson, News 4.
Wrangling your own.
We're now learning a California federal judge ordered 6 federal agencies to reinstate some fired employees. The judge found that the Office of Personnel Management, or OPM, was unlawfully terminating probationary workers. That includes the Department of Defense and civilian probationary workers. The order forces the government.
Thousands of federal workers laid off earlier this month could soon be back on the job. Just hours ago, a federal judge in San Francisco ordered 6 federal agencies to immediately reinstate the probationary employees who were fired.
But with all the looming uncertainty, some are wondering if they should go back to those jobs or find a different one. Kyle Simchuk reports.
Roads take me home. Last week, we introduced you to Kristen Frey, a music therapist at the Phoenix VA who was fired over email like thousands of other federal workers. Introduced you to Kristen Frey, a music therapist. Take me home. Last week, we introduced you to Kristen Frey, a music therapist at the Phoenix VA who was fired over email like thousands of other federal workers.
Someone called very upset to our line and just kept repeating, music therapy saved my life, music therapy saved my life.
Her phone rang again today, this time from friends and family sharing news from a California courtroom.
My stomach actually dropped. I was excited, but I also was fearful because we have just been through such a roller coaster the last 3 weeks.
A federal judge in San Francisco ordered 6 federal agencies, including the VA, to immediately reinstate the thousands, if not tens of thousands of workers who were laid off in February, as the Trump administration and DOJ work to downsize the federal government.
I was heartbroken to leave. Now I'm not sure what to think.
Frey hasn't received any communication from the VA yet or a paycheck in weeks, which is forcing her to make a difficult career decision.
I have teenagers. I have a kid in college. I want to be able to take care of them and provide what they need. So should I wait around for the VA or should I look elsewhere?
The White House is already pushing back against the judge's order. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says the Trump administration will immediately fight back against this absurd and unconstitutional order.
We can find efficiencies while still making sure we're saving the lives of veterans.
President Trump could appeal the judge's decision, which would only extend the mass layoffs. It's a roller coaster Frey is tired of riding.
I understand the VA is being asked to do a reduction in force in the summer, so I don't know if that will be a stable job to return to. I love the work, but I would love to work in a place that I felt like I could make a difference and stay a long time.
In Phoenix, Kyle Simchuk, 12 News.
A federal judge ordered the Trump administration to reinstate thousands of probationary federal workers who were let go in mass firings across the country, including the Department of Veterans Affairs. Brianna Fallon joins us in the studio with more on how Hampton VA workers are reacting to this news. Brianna.
That information can lead to
Dana,
identity
so the mass
theft,
layoffs
hacking.
were done in efforts by the Trump administration to downsize the federal workforce, which left thousands.
A federal judge ordered the Trump administration to reinstate thousands of probationary federal workers who were let go in mass firings across the country, including the Department of Veterans Affairs. Brianna Fallon joins us in the studio with more on how Hampton VA workers are reacting to this news. Brianna.
Yeah, Dana, so the mass layoffs were done in efforts by the Trump administration to downsize the federal workforce, which left thousands jobless. Alexandria Hunt was a victim of the federal cuts. She says when she heard about the reinstatements, she couldn't stop smiling.
February 25th started off as a normal workday at the Hampton Veterans Affairs Medical Center for Alexandria Hunt, until she said her supervisor fired her due to her work performance.
Or like my supervisors and them to tell me, you're doing an amazing job. It just didn't fit my reasoning or their reasoning for me being terminated. So it definitely took a shot at what I feel was like my character and my work ethic.
Hunt was one of thousands fired due to the Trump administration's efforts to downsize the federal workforce.
Once I got the information of being blindsided, I was beyond devastated.
But as of today, Hunt could get reinstated in the Hampton VA.
I'm excited. I feel like a kid in a candy store.
On Thursday, U.S. District Judge William Alsup ordered the Trump administration to immediately reinstate thousands of probationary workers from the Departments of Agriculture, Defense, Energy, the Interior, Treasury, and the VA. This comes after the San Francisco-based judge said he found these mass firings did not follow federal laws.
This is very meaningful for me. And so many others too, just so many others. I'm just so grateful that someone got to hear our stories and they realized that we're an important piece of the puzzle for working.
While Hunt focuses on what her next steps will be following the announcement, she says she's just happy there's a possibility for her to get back into the medical center soon.
And Hunt noted that she does not know when her official first day back will be, but she plans on calling her supervisor for more information. Brianna Fallon, 13 News Now.
All right, thanks, Brianna. And it's important to note the reinstatement order does not include workers from the Department of Commerce.